Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another day in mind-melting hypocrisy. For today's story, it's a corker. It's a corker. Every 24 hours that elapses, the Labour Party manage to come up with the most unbelievable own goals where they do appear to be working deliberately on behalf of, like, an enemy nation. Every single thing that is bad for the people of the United Kingdom, they get on board with. Today's story, you're actually not going to believe it. Do you think the UK government would be angry if the Russians or the Chinese sent hundreds of politicians to the UK to push reform and to canvass for reform and to loudly advocate for reform just before a general election? Do you think they'd be okay with that? Because that's what the hypocritical twats are doing. From Elon Musk on X, this is illegal. And he links to a story by Ian Miles Chong about 100 UK Labour politicians who are campaigning on behalf of the foot-faced imbecile herself, Kamala Harris, across battleground states. Isn't this the literal definition of foreign election interference? I believe so. And obviously, the Patel is the head of operations at the Labour Party. I have nearly 100 Labour Party staff, current and former, going to the United States in the next few weeks, heading to North Carolina, Nevada, Pennsylvania and Virginia. I have 10 spots available for anyone available to head to the battleground state of North Carolina. We will sort your housing. Email me on labourforkamala@gmail.com if you're interested. Thanks. And it's going to be taxpayer funded. They're going to be spending your money to do this, aren't they? The definition of election interference. And how do you think it looks? How do you think it looks to the Americans? If Donald Trump wins the election, I mean, they're going to cheat, so I don't see it. But if he does, don't you think he'd be quite within his rights to start treating the British government as a hostile entity? Do you think that's going to be good for the average British person? The largest and most powerful nation in the world being headed by a hostile entity because of the actions of the British government, nakedly and openly espousing rhetoric that is dangerous? It's not going to be good for you, is it? Almost everything they do isn't good for you. They spend your money encouraging unvetted fighting age men to move in. That's not good for you. They treat criminals with kid gloves while locking up the white working classes with draconian hate speech laws that are only ever applied to the majority native inhabitants of the United Kingdom and never applied to hate preachers or those asking for the murder of gay people or Jews in the middle of the street. They never get prosecuted for using language like that, but you'll get prosecuted for it. And to put the cherry on top, they're now antagonising a bloke who may well end up the leader of the free world. And in my opinion, as a result, would be perfectly within his rights to launch an airstrike against the Houses of Parliament. And at this point, looking at the people who are in the Houses of Parliament, would you really be upset if the Donald authorised the US Air Force to strafe the Houses of Parliament and the House of Lords with an A-10 Warthog? Because I wouldn't. In fact, I think I'd get the popcorn out. So let's hope that the American government responds. Evil Texan points out that North Carolina has same-day registration and voting. That's why they're going there. Oh yeah, and they probably don't demand that you show any ID either, do they? How peculiar. And Colin Rugg points out the obvious, that foreign election interference is perfectly fine as long as it's the left doing it. Because if they didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all, would they? As Free Prince points out, this is next-level hypocrisy. Their hypocrisy is off the charts, it really is. Can you imagine what they would do if 100 foreign officials campaigned for a GOP candidate? But when it's on their side, it's all silent. It's kind of mental, isn't it? I would love to see it. I'd love to see 100 Chinamen walking around swing states with Trump MAGA hats on. Yeah, we are Chinese people and we support the Donald. Surely that would not be acceptable to them. But the same as the UK government, they only apply the law when it suits them. They are expressly, nakedly political entities, and everybody knows it. And as you might expect, try as I might, I could find nothing on the BBC about Britain meddling in US presidential elections, except a story from the 5th of January 2020, when they explained that George W. Bush craved a smoking gun in 1992, and the British government delved into its files for damaging information. So did the Trump camp solicit foreign interference to help him win an election? the very allegation that has seen President Trump impeached. So as usual, this again, the conspiracy theorists have all been proved right, okay? It's why it's called globalism. The reason the Labour government are helping the Harris government is because the globalist psychopaths that rule the world are all singing off the same hymn sheet, and what they want is very, very, very bad for you. Fortunately, I'm sure the US administration that could come in, if it was to replace Footface Harris's despicably corrupt regime, wouldn't hold a grudge, would they? Because it's not the British across the entire Western world, and it's not the French or the Germans or the Austrians or the Spanish or anybody else. It's a new era we've entered. It's not about nationality anymore. It's about globalism versus individualism right across the Western world. And the globalist psychopaths will stop at nothing to crush your rights. And there isn't a mosquito's cock between the likes of Kamala Harris, Keir Starmer, Rishi Sunak, Ursula von der Scheisseporn, Guy Verhofstadt, Olaf Scholz, or any of the rest of them. This is what globalism is. A war between controlling, authoritarian tyrants who think they know best, and if you're hyper-educated and you agree with them, you should be allowed an opinion, and if you're not, you shouldn't. It's totally fine. We should be in charge because we're well-educated. And those of us that disagree are persona non grata, and they'll jail you for speaking, and they'll jail you for wrong think, and they'll jail you for the wrong opinions, and they will let you interfere in foreign elections willy-nilly as long as you have the right opinions. It's disgraceful hypocrisy, but it's exactly what we expect from them at this point. Yeah, that's the story for the day. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope Donald somehow manages to defeat the forces that are arrayed against him and promptly declares war on the Labour Party in response. Maybe he could cause a coup like we did in Ukraine and secretly fund the rebels in England so they can fight against their tyrannical leaders. He is hoping. You never know. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and I'll see you all very soon. Have a good one. Toodle pip. Cheers.